Have you ever had someone walk into your life and everything just started going wrong? It's like peace walked out the door the moment they walked in. Your emotions shifted, your energy drained, your confidence shook, and yet, on the surface, they seem so normal. Maybe even kind, but deep down, something didn't feel right. What if I told you that's not just a coincidence? There's a chilling truth most of us don't talk about. The devil doesn't always show up with horns and fire. Sometimes he walks into your life wearing a smile. A friend, a partner, even a family member, someone who seems harmless, but behind the charm is a purpose: to derail your growth, shake your faith, and keep you from becoming who you were meant to be. This video is going to uncover 6 warning signs that someone in your life might not be what they seem. These aren't just difficult people. These are spiritual saboteurs, emotional manipulators, energy drainers. And once you know how to recognize them, you'll never see people the same way again. Now, before we dive in, I need to say something important. These signs often start subtle. That's what makes them so dangerous. It's not always screaming matches or outright betrayal. It's the slow erosion of your peace, your purpose, and your power. But when you learn to see the pattern, you take back control. I'll guide you through every sign, building a full picture so that by the end, you'll not only know what to look for, you'll know how to protect yourself and those you love. Because sometimes the greatest battles we fight are the ones that look like relationships. So if you've ever felt like someone is draining the light out of your life, but you couldn't quite explain how, stay with me. This may be the moment where the truth finally clicks. Let's begin. Have you ever noticed how some people just can't survive unless there's drama? One moment you're having a peaceful day, and the next, boom, it's like you've been sucked into an emotional war zone, and somehow they're always in the middle of it, acting like they have no idea how it started. That's not just bad luck. That's a tactic. The first sign that someone might be sent to derail your life is this: they manufacture chaos over and over again. Picture this. You're at a family dinner. Everyone's laughing, catching up, enjoying the moment. Then one person, just one, makes a little comment. Nothing outrageous. But suddenly your cousin is crying in the bathroom. Your mom won't talk to your sister, and the room feels like a minefield. And that person, they sit back, raise their eyebrows, and ask, what just happened? It's theatrical, it's calculated, and it's a pattern. You'll see it at work. A single complaint from them turns a team project into a mess. You'll see it at church, where they stir up quiet conflicts that drive people away. In your friend circle, there's always some hidden tension, and somehow they're always right at the center of it. Here's what makes it so effective: they never take responsibility. Chaos follows them like a storm cloud, but they always act like the innocent bystander. And the more you try to fix things, the more you get pulled into their cycle. Why would someone do this? Because when your life is full of fires, you don't have time to dream. When your heart is constantly in repair mode, you can't pursue your purpose. Chaos isn't just noise, it's a spiritual distraction. The enemy doesn't always come to destroy you directly. Sometimes he sends someone to wear you down. Bit by bit, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, until you're so tired of the mess that you stop building your future and start just trying to survive. Ask yourself, is there someone in your life who seems to attract conflict wherever they go? Someone who turns calm into crisis, laughter into silence, trust into tension? Do you find yourself walking on eggshells around them, unsure what tiny trigger will blow things up next? If you do, it's time to pay attention. Because when someone consistently poisons the peace in your life, that's not just difficult behavior. That's spiritual warfare, disguised as personality. And once you identify it, you can start taking back your energy, your peace, and your power. Now let me ask you something a little uncomfortable. Has someone ever made you feel like the people who love you the most are actually your enemies? It never starts with a full-out attack. It begins with little suggestions. Quiet questions that plant doubt like seeds in the back of your mind. Did you see how your sister looked at you? Your friends seem off today, didn't they? They don't really understand you the way I do. At first, it feels like love. They're just being protective, right? They want to be close to you. It feels flattering and even comforting. But slowly, something happens. You stop reaching out to people. You skip family events. You avoid brunches with friends. You start thinking, maybe they don't get me anymore. And suddenly, the only voice you hear is theirs. This is sign number 2. They isolate you from your support system. And make no mistake, it's strategic. Think about predators in nature. What does a lion do when it wants to hunt? It separates its prey from the herd. Why? Because isolation makes you vulnerable. And spiritually, emotionally, it works the same way. Let me tell you a story. A woman named Maria had a strong, supportive community. Friends, family, church. But then she met someone who slowly turned her world inward. He whispered doubts. He pointed fingers. He wrapped his control in phrases like, "I just care about you," or "I'm the only one who truly sees you." Within 6 months, Maria wasn't herself anymore. She stopped seeing her family. She left her church. And when friends tried to reach out, she doubted their motives. One by one, the connections that had once anchored her life were gone. This kind of isolation doesn't look evil. It often looks like romance, loyalty, or deep care. But here's the truth. Real love doesn't cut you off from the world. Real love expands your world. It encourages healthy connections. It supports your growth. It celebrates your community. So if there's someone in your life who constantly criticizes the people you care about, if they question everyone's intentions except their own, if they slowly replace your circle with just themselves, that's not love, that's control. Isolation isn't about protection, it's about power. Because when you have no one else to check your reality, it's easier for someone to rewrite it. When you stop hearing other perspectives, it's easier for lies to sound like truth. And when you're completely alone, you start depending on the very person who's pulling you away from yourself. Here's how it unfolds. First, they criticize. Your mom's too controlling. Then they create distance. You don't need to go to that family dinner. Finally, they replace everyone. I'm all you need. And by the time you realize what's happened, it can feel like there's no one left to turn to. But I want you to hear this clearly. You were never meant to do life alone. Community isn't just a luxury, it's a lifeline. It's your protection, your balance, your perspective. So if someone in your life is slowly pulling you away from everyone else, pause, reflect, and ask the hard question, are they connecting me deeper to my purpose or quietly separating me from it? Have you ever spent time with someone and walked away feeling like you'd just run a marathon? Mentally, emotionally, and even physically? Like they didn't just borrow your time, they siphoned something deeper? This is sign number 3. They drain your energy and resources. I'm not talking about your friend who's having a rough week. I'm talking about people who seem hardwired to extract everything from you. Your time, your attention, your money, your peace, while giving almost nothing in return. They don't show up with fangs. They come with needs, endless needs. And if you're a kind, giving person, that's exactly what makes you their favorite target. Here's how it often plays out. They always seem to have an emergency right before your job interview, your vacation, or your rest day. Their drama becomes your responsibility. Their crisis becomes your mission. And no matter how much you do, it's never enough. A few examples might sound familiar. The friend who calls at 3:00 a.m. every other night, unloading their problems while you can barely keep your eyes open for work the next day. The family member who always seems to need money, especially when you just got paid. The partner who leans on you emotionally every time they're down, but disappears when you need them most. You see, there's a difference between someone who's going through a tough time and someone who's using you as their permanent fuel supply. Because here's the spiritual truth. Your energy is sacred. It's tied to your purpose. It's the fuel you need to create, to serve, to grow into the person you were meant to be. When someone drains that from you constantly, you become too tired to move forward, too empty to rise. These people don't just waste your time, they stall your destiny. Let me put it another way. Your life is a garden, and every time you pour your energy into someone, you're watering a seed. The right people will grow with you. They'll become trees that shade and nourish you in return. But these energy vampires, they're like weeds. No matter how much you water them, they only take. They never bloom. They only leave you dry. And they're smart about it too. They disguise their need as loyalty. They call their manipulation love. They say, friends help each other, right? Yes, but not forever. Not at the cost of your well-being. Not when it's one-sided and never-ending. So here's a gut check question. Is there someone in your life who leaves you more drained than restored every single time? Do you find yourself rescheduling your priorities, emptying your wallet, or sacrificing sleep just to keep up with their problems? Have they somehow convinced you that your value lies in how much you can give them? If so, it's time to reassess the connection. Because love, friendship, and family are not supposed to deplete you. They're meant to be a source of renewal. You're allowed to have limits. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to protect your energy because it wasn't given to you to be wasted. It was given to you to fulfill your calling. And no one, no matter how close they are, has the right to steal that from you. Let's go deeper now to the foundation of who you are. Your faith, your inner compass, your connection to something greater. Because when someone attacks that, they're not just challenging your beliefs, they're aiming to dismantle your soul. This brings us to sign number 4. They deliberately discourage your spiritual growth. Now here's the thing, they rarely do it outright. They don't usually walk in and say, let's destroy your faith today. No, it's far more subtle and far more dangerous. They start with questions that sound innocent. Do you really think prayer makes a difference? Isn't that belief kind of outdated? Are you sure God cares about small things like that? At first, it might sound like curiosity, maybe even healthy debate. But over time, you realize the questions only go in one direction, away from faith, away from purpose, away from your spiritual foundation. These aren't friends inviting you to grow. These are faith eroders, spiritual saboteurs dressed as deep thinkers. And here's what makes them so dangerous. They often come into your life when you're already struggling, when your prayers feel unanswered, when doubt has already crept in. That's when they plant their seeds, not to help you heal, but to widen the cracks. They say things like, all religions are basically the same, right? You don't need a book to tell you how to live. I've found more peace in crystals than in any church. Now let me be clear, this isn't about being closed-minded. Healthy conversations about faith and doubt are good. They help us grow. But there's a clear difference between someone who challenges you with love and someone who chips away at your beliefs without ever respecting where you're coming from. So ask yourself, when you share something spiritual, do they roll their eyes? Do they constantly mock or minimize what you hold sacred? Do you feel more confused, more discouraged, or more disconnected from your spiritual life after spending time with them? Because if so, that's not growth. That's erosion. And spiritually speaking, that's intentional. You see, the enemy knows your spiritual connection is your power source. It's where your wisdom comes from, your discernment, your strength to walk away from toxic people, your clarity to make the hard decisions. So if he can't attack you directly, he'll send someone to disconnect you from that source. And they'll do it dressed as intellect, as curiosity, as I just want you to think for yourself. But really, they want you to doubt the very thing that grounds you. And the consequences are devastating. I've seen people drift from the beliefs that once anchored them. They replaced prayer with trends, conviction with confusion. They trade truth for temporary comfort. And suddenly they feel lost, not just spiritually, but emotionally, mentally, even physically. You weren't created to wander aimlessly. Your spiritual life is your compass. When someone deliberately dulls it, questions it, or redirects it, they're not helping you. They're hijacking your path. So pay close attention. You're allowed to protect your faith. You're allowed to walk away from people who drain your spirit. And you're allowed to grow without being constantly questioned. Because someone who truly loves you will water your spirit, not suffocate it. Take a moment and think about something that makes you feel vulnerable. Something you try to hide, even from the people closest to you. Maybe it's a failure from your past. Maybe it's your appearance, your age, your fears about the future. We all have those quiet places inside us, the tender spots we guard. But what if someone entered your life and zeroed in on those spots like they had a map? This is sign number 5. They mirror your deepest insecurities and weaponize them. At first, they seem safe, like someone you can finally open up to. They listen deeply. They nod. They say, "You can trust me." And for a while you do. You tell them things you've never told anyone. But then, it shifts. Suddenly, the very things you shared in confidence come back to haunt you, thrown in your face during an argument, used against you in moments when you're already down. They don't forget your mistakes. They catalog them, and they pull them out at the exact moment when it will hurt most. Ever had someone remind you of your biggest failure right after a big success? Or bring up an old shame just as you were starting to feel confident again? That's not clumsiness. That's strategy. Because here's the twisted truth. Some people don't just want to win an argument. They want to control you. And the best way to control someone is to convince them they're broken, small, and unworthy. Think about the phrases they use. "I'm just being honest." "You're too sensitive." "I thought you could handle the truth." But there's no love in those words, no care, no timing, just daggers disguised as feedback. Real love speaks truth gently, with purpose and patience. These people speak truth like a weapon, to wound, not to heal. Even worse, some of them work in groups. They'll talk about your insecurities with others, turning your private struggles into public ridicule. Ever hear, "We were all just talking and about how you always..." That's not friendship. That's psychological warfare. And spiritually speaking, the goal is clear. If they can keep you doubting yourself, you'll never step into your purpose. Because when you're consumed by insecurity, you stop taking risks. When you're ashamed, you stop dreaming. And when you believe you're unworthy, you stop receiving what was meant for you. This is more than emotional manipulation. It's a direct hit to your identity, the very core of how you see yourself and your value. So if there's someone in your life who always knows where to hit you, someone who seems to enhance shrinking you, someone who uses your fears as leverage, it's time to draw a line. Because you were not created to live under the weight of someone else's control. You deserve relationships that uplift, not undermine, that heal, not haunt. Protect your inner life the same way you protect your outer one. Your self-worth isn't negotiable, and no one, absolutely no one, has the right to weaponize your wounds. Now that you've heard the signs, the chaos creators, the isolation specialists, the energy vampires, the faith destroyers, and the insecurity exploiters, I want you to step back and look at the bigger picture. These people don't just show up randomly, and these signs, they rarely appear in isolation. In fact, the most dangerous ones display multiple patterns, creating a storm that shakes your peace, blurs your direction, and leaves you wondering if the problem is you. But here's the truth, it's not. If your soul has felt heavy, if your spirit has felt dimmed, if you've questioned why life keeps feeling harder than it should, this may be your wake-up call. Not to become bitter, not to fight back with fire, but to finally draw boundaries, to finally say no more. And I want you to hear this clearly. You don't need a dramatic confrontation to reclaim your peace. You don't need to burn bridges. Sometimes you just need to stop handing over the match. Start small. Trust that uneasy feeling in your gut. That's spiritual discernment. Don't dismiss it. Begin limiting access to your time, your energy, and your inner world. Reconnect with the people who lift you up, those old friends, your faith community, the family you've drifted from. Rebuild what was torn down. Forgive where needed, not for them, but for your own peace. But forgiveness is not the same as permission to stay hurt. And here's the hard truth. If you go back to the same patterns, to the same toxic people, you're choosing to suffer. You're choosing to stay stuck. And you deserve better than that. You were created for more, for peace, for purpose, for freedom. And now that you've seen the signs, you can't unsee them. You can't unknow what you know, but you can use that knowledge to protect your life and protect the lives of those you love. So let this be your moment, your turning point, your quiet revolution. Because once you recognize spiritual sabotage for what it is, you no longer fight people, you rise above them. And that's where your power begins. If this video spoke to something deep inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who might need to hear these signs. Drop a comment below if any of this resonated. Let's create a space where people don't feel crazy for trusting their instincts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. This channel is about protecting your spirit, healing from the unseen, and finding strength through truth. Turn on notifications so you never miss a moment that could shift your path. Because your story isn't over. Your peace is possible. And the freedom you've been waiting for, it starts right now.